As Israel escalates its military response to Hamas, it moves to crack down against media that it says support the militant group. Included in new emergency regulations, a plan to shutter the Al Jazeera local bureau over claims of Hamas propaganda. Critics argue moves to silence journalists or an entire news organization amount to censorship. Quinn McHugh is the executive director of the Press Freedom Organization, Article 19.
Shutting down access to information and a legitimate news agency such as Al Jazeera is never a step that should be taken lightly. And it is a very worrying step of losing a credible news source and the information gap that would have and what that would send to audiences more broadly around the world and in the Middle East.
The Israel-Hamas conflict is rife with disinformation and misinformation weaponized for war. The false narratives are prominent online, especially through social media. Media watchdogs say that the role of news organizations to debunk disinformation is critical and that no voice should be silenced. The Committee to Protect Journalists and other media advocates urge Israel not to take such a drastic step. U.S. public broadcaster NPR has a team of 8 journalists on the ground covering the war. Its CEO, John Lansing, who used to head VOA parent company, the U.S. Agency for Global Media, says the primary obligation of journalists is the truth.
Just vigilance, understanding that all you have is credibility. That's all it is, whether it's VOA or NPR or the New York Times. And anything that threatens the credibility of what people are reading or seeing is a failure. And we always have to put our audiences first.
Israel's communications ministry did not respond to VOA's email requesting comment, but directives from its communications and defense ministries accuse Al Jazeera of pro-Hamas bias and spreading propaganda. Israel says it considers Al Jazeera's reporting a threat to its national security, its soldiers, and its civilians. Al Jazeera did not respond to VOA's email request for comment, but its published code of ethics states in part that its journalists must adhere to values of fairness and independence. Some media watchdogs say Al Jazeera is not an outlier news organization spreading disinformation.
They're able to provide a very interesting and balanced and unique perspective. Shutting that agency down and removing them would be a very chilling step for freedom of expression in the media in the region that would open the floodgates to other kind of restrictions and repression.
As the conflict escalates, media analysts watch closely for moves restricting news coverage on either side of the war. Robin Guess, VOA News.